actually. So we're talking about, the whole year is around spirituality in action. And this month we're talking about spiritually motivated moral leadership. So last week we talked a little bit about that because sometimes words get co-opted. They kind of get snatched and they mean some things, like moral majority maybe means some things to some people it doesn't mean here. What we're talking about as moral leaders is more like servant leaders. It's a servant leader model is what we mean by moral leaders. And so I found a cool article out of Fortune magazine of all things, and I'm using a lot of business references because that's where most of the leadership material is, and melding that with our spirituality, but it's all a universal message, really and truly. So Fortune magazine, Change the World 2017, came out with this article about moral leaders, and it said the number one thing: leaders are driven by purpose. Moral leaders must know what their purpose is. They know their values, they know their mission, and why they're here. Okay. The next thing, and we talked about that last week, they are animated by courage and patience. It takes courage to step out. It takes courage, and we talked about that last week as well. Today we're going to talk about inspiring and elevating others. Next week we're going to talk about building that muscle. So those are the 4 pillars of moral leaders. And last week we talked about this idea of leaders. Now maybe some of you were sitting in the audience thinking, well, I'm not a leader. I'm not a leader. We think of leaders as, people in Congress and mayors and presidents and prime ministers and things like that. But the truth of the matter is that when these gentlemen, this is the book that I'm speaking, I've gotten most of my top ideas from this month, is The Truth About Leadership by James Couzes and Barry Posner. And these gentlemen have been working for 30 years, over 30 years in this field of leadership, and have interviewed over 1 million people to find out what are the values of leaders, what's important about leadership, and those universal principles that apply regardless of where you're from, what country you're in. These are what is important to leaders, whether you're living in China or you're living in the US. So the truth of the matter is that you make a difference. And while you may not believe you are a leader, the leaders that have the most impact on our lives are the people with the closest proximity. Amen. In other words, if you are a parent, a grandparent, you are a leader. Right? If you supervise someone, you're a leader, because the leaders, the people who manage people, right, are more important in the lives of those individuals than, say, the CEO of the company that you never see. Does that make sense? Yes. Right? So we are all leaders in some degree or another, whether you're owning it or not. And if you're not yet, there may be a time in your life where you are called to be a leader. Right? And now we're talking, this is November, election day, all of these kinds of things. We've got another big election coming up real soon. I want you all to be thinking about what are the principles and what is important about the people that we call our leaders and those that we follow. So the number one thing is, the truth is that you make a difference. You make a difference. Somebody is looking to you for leadership. Right? It's no accident that you're here today or that you're watching online. This message is for you, whether you think you're a leader or not. You make a difference. So it's not a question of, will I make a difference? The question is, what difference am I going to make? So what we want to do is be intentional about how we show up in the world and the difference that we want to make for people. Right? Do you want to be the one who walks in the room? I love this little story, we do it a lot. Right? The person who walks in the room and lights up the space. Right? We know that everyone can bring joy to a room. Right? Some people bring it when they enter, but for some, it's when they leave. So who do you choose to be? Who do you choose to be? We all have that power to do that. We're all leaders. And then, so to be a leader, I think about that. What does it mean to be a success in life? And it has to do with leadership and taking, deciding what difference it is that I want to make. And this is a quote from Emerson that I just love. I pulled it out for a workshop this week, and I thought I just have to share it with the group in case you all haven't heard it before. But Emerson said, what is success? It is to laugh often and much. It is to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children. Success is to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends. to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know that even one life is breathed a little bit easier because you were here. That is to have succeeded. I just love that. He also said this. You see, you get to decide what success is for you. You get to decide that. Nobody else gets to decide that for you. The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. Right? There's nothing pulling the strings telling you what you need to be. You get to decide. We have that ability as human beings, as given life, breath, a mind to think with, that you get to decide for yourself who you're going to be and how you're going to show up in this world. So, one of the most important things about leaders is that they have vision. We want to have leaders that have vision. And we know when there is no vision, people perish. The people perish, right? We're looking right now, I think nationally, maybe even internationally, at an epidemic of hopelessness. Right? Of people who see no future for themselves. And that is tragic. That is tragic. As we look at our young people, we've got record numbers of people on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, and people who are isolating and are just terrified. They have no vision. Suicide, all of these awful things are, the rates are going up. That's why it's time for people who know better, time for people with a little skill to step up. Amen. You may not think that you have what it takes, but I'm telling you, if you're sitting in here, there's a reason you're here. There's absolutely a reason you're here. So it's about vision. It's, do I see a better future? Do I see something ahead of me? We all need that. We all need that. Think about yourself. If you didn't have something, something to hope for, or some as you go through your day-to-day life, who would get out of bed in the morning? Right? If you didn't feel like there was some reason, something better for you. And I know that there are a lot of people that are in that place right now. And you may know some of them, right? So what leaders do is they focus on that future. That is what sets leaders apart. Now, the two gentlemen that wrote that book, right, The Truth About Leadership, they looked at all of these different qualities that are important to people. And the number one thing that we want, not just in our leaders, but in our friends and the people we work with day to day is, what do you think? Anybody want to take a guess? What is the value, the quality? Honesty, truth, honesty, right? We want to know that people have integrity. We want to know that we can count on that, right? So that's that's the number one thing. But people want that of their coworkers and of their family and their friends. They want people who are going to be honest with them. The next thing, where it separates then from your leaders to your peers, is we want leaders who are forward-looking. We want leaders who are looking down the road. We want leaders who can show us a better future. Right? Those are the kind of leaders that we want. Those are the moral leaders that we're talking about. Intention. Yes, intention. Right? So the capacity to imagine and articulate exciting future possibilities is the defining competence of the leader. That comes straight out of their book. Leaders are custodians of the future. Isn't that beautiful? Leaders are custodians of the future. It reminds me of another quote, the idea that we don't just inherit the world from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. Right? So only positive leaders can make a positive difference. That was for me like, duh, right? It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. Only a positive leader is going to lead you in a positive direction. How is a negative leader going to do that? How is a leader who sows seeds of fear and division and hatred going to lead us to a positive future? It's simple. It's just common sense, right? It's common sense, yes. Only positive leaders can make a positive difference. And again, we're talking on high, yes, but we're talking about in our day-to-day lives. Talking about all of us together. When we catch ourselves, let me speak for myself. I can go down that rabbit hole. You know, I can swirl. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You get on Facebook, you start looking, and you know, this one said this and that one said that, and suddenly you're just like, oh my gosh, you know, what is this world coming to? Right? Those are circumstances. Those are circumstances. We set that aside. A leader knows that there's a place beyond that. And that's what we're looking toward. Here's another really fascinating thing, I think, is that leadership is a team sport. If you all know that. Have you all know that already? Yeah? I got a glimpse of that at, you know, TEDx the other day. I shared with you that I was one of the team members of TEDx. And it was just incredible. The group of people that came together to pull off that event was amazing. This is another one that you all might be more familiar with. Does anybody recognize that or have an idea of what that might be? It's called Menlo Park, and that was the playground there of Thomas Edison. Y'all know who Thomas Edison was? Now, most of us think of Thomas Edison. He was this great, amazing inventor. He invented the phonograph and motion picture camera. He had over 1,000 patents personally. So we think about him, you know, the light bulb, right? And how many times was it? 10,000 tries? Or 1,000 tries with the light bulb, and he said that, you know, I didn't fail. Those were 10,000 tries that just, you know, didn't work. They led me to what did work. So, you know, we think of Edison as this lone guy in, you know, in his laboratory doing his thing. But the truth of it is that Edison had a great team. He had teams of people. And the thing that he is, one of the greatest inventions is one we don't think about, but we are all the benefits of, and that is a research and development laboratory. He had groups of people that would come and work on projects. And let me tell you how he did it. Let's see. The image of Edison alone in his lab, single-handedly inventing all of these amazing innovations is wrong. It's a fairy tale. No leader single-handedly ever gets anything extraordinary done. Now this is from from a biography about him. He used to call his gatherings, like they would work all day, and then they had what they called the midnight lunch at Edison's Menlo Park. He would give his employees had a practice of staying late in the lab to run experiments and having dinner together. Edison would often leave work at 5 p.m., have dinner with his family, then return to the lab at 7 to monitor how the experiments were faring. He would speak personally with the dozen or so employees who were staying late to work on their experiments, encouraging them to share insights with each other and learn from the diverse expertise that each person brought to the project. Now that was part of his genius, right? Edison couldn't do everything. He was not like any of us, right? We all have our gifts, we have our talents, but we can't do everything ourselves. So what do we do as leaders? We bring in those team members that fill in our holes. So we have a complete, right, picture. He says about 9 p.m. Edison would order food for everyone from the local tavern. For an hour or so, the assembled crew would relax, tell stories, sing songs, and even play music together before heading back to work until the wee hours of morning. They connected socially. They created a deeper understanding of each other as people and not workers. This process of midnight lunch transformed employees into colleagues, and it served as the foundation for collaboration in all of Edison's labs. Throughout midnight lunch, we see the importance of activities that encourage employees to come together in ways that link their work with their social lives. For Edison, midnight lunch was crucially important. It created an environment in which collaboration could thrive. Right? So leaders are about bringing people together and knowing them, knowing the people. So knowing what they're good at, knowing what their talents are, knowing what their dreams are, knowing how to motivate. Really, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. It says one of Edison's greatest overlooked talents was his ability to assemble teams, which I already said, and set up an organized structure that fosters people's creativity. Isn't that brilliant? Yeah. We could use more of that. Geese know that.
Yes.
Right? Geese understand. You know that story, right? The analogy about the geese. We think, there's that one leader that's in front, But the one that's in front isn't always the same one, is it? No. Right? The one that they take turns, he drops back, lets the next one come. So that there is a synergy that happens when they all come together. One of the reasons people want to follow a leader is because they know that they will be better off as a result of being in the relationship than they would be otherwise. Right? That's what we call synergy. Separate, we can all do our thing, but together there is something that happens when people come together in the service of a common goal with their abilities and their talents and their passion that creates something much bigger and much greater than anyone could have done on their own. Right? And that's what we want from our leaders. That's who we want to be. Right? I mean, I certainly want to do that. To get more done and do less work? Right? To be more effective, to be more efficient. Don't we all want that? Yeah, right? And to be able to focus on the things that I love and that I do well and know that I'm creating space for someone else to do what they love and what they do well. There's nothing better than that. Right? Right? We can do amazing things. We can create amazing things. Small groups of people, that's what has done it. You know, we look at this congregation and we're kind of small, but we're mighty. Yeah. We're mighty. We get a lot of things done here. We do a lot. So we know that our leaders, the vision, the mission is so important for a leader. And I want you to take out your program if you have it and look at our vision and mission of who we are here as Centers for Spiritual Living, because we are training people to be leaders in their lives. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. I think the people that are coming here, you know, we're not for everybody, right? Not everyone is ready for this teaching. Not everyone is ready to take responsibility for their lives and, you know, take the bull by the horns and stop playing victim. Not everyone's up for that. But for the people who are, that's what we want to do, is empower the people who are to make that better difference. Our mission here is to empower individuals to awaken to the power and presence that lies within and all around them so that they may live their best lives. That's all of you. Right? That's all of us. That's all of us. That's why I do this, because it makes me a better person to be in your presence. How many of you can be on board with that mission? Right. Now, we came up with that, how long has it been done? Maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years now? It's probably time to revisit, right? We also did, as a congregation, we came together and we looked at our values, the values that each one of us spoke this morning that Donna led us in. And maybe we need to look at those again and make sure that's still what we're about. Because our values, that's your compass. That's your guide. Always, you know, you need to make a decision. You measure it up against your values. Does this reflect who I am? Does this reflect our mission? Is this going to further our purpose? And that's how we decide. That's how we all, you know, you want to have a life that works. Know what's important for you and hold yourself to that. It's an inside game. We have to do it for ourselves before we can change. We don't change. In fact, we don't change anybody else. Self, right? It's all self. All the time. All the time. It needs to be. It needs to be. Because I can't change any of you. All I can do is change myself. So our vision, CSL Ocala, Center for Spiritual Living. I'm trying to get rid of the little acronyms because CSL doesn't mean anything to people out there, right? Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is a model center for spiritual living, as evidenced by the transformational impact we have on our spiritual community, the organization of Centers for Spiritual Living, and the community at large. That's a vision we came up with, and it had hashtag 5,000, meaning that we would have 5,000 contacts a month. I think that's how we said it. We didn't specify it. We didn't specify it. We said 5,000 a month. Obviously, we don't have 5,000 here in the room. Right? Physically. But not physically. But our online reach is huge. Do you remember the last number? I haven't looked in a while, Richard. Of our reach.
Around 15,000.
Don't hear that? Per month? We're reaching about 15,000 people per month. Is that Mind-blowing? Yes. That is incredible. And that is in large part to that man right there. I want you to give him a round of applause. He sits there very quietly in the tech booth, right? But he's the person who's been in charge of handling our social media throughout the week, and we're touching 15,000 lives with those messages. That's Richard Jensen, who is also the president of our board and the president and the circle leader of our tech team. So maybe this vision, I don't know how this speaks to our congregation. Do you all care about being a model center for spiritual living? Maybe it's time to revisit that. But we have to be looking continually. Are we doing what we said we came here to do? Is this in fact still our purpose and our vision and our mission? Right? So maybe being a model doesn't mean anything, but to me the idea of transformational impact, right? Are your lives changing? And I've often thought that maybe we should do some kind of questionnaire when people come in, the first couple of times they're here, and just see, like, where's your life now? Right? And then let's check 6 months from now. Let's check a year from now and see if anything has changed for you as a result of being in this community and using these principles. Because I see it. I see it. We have had people, my best example, you know who I'm talking about, came in here just walking with a cane. She's 40 years old. I'm not even sure she was 40 at that point. But walking with a cane, pain from head to toe. We went one time on a field trip, and she had to be in a wheelchair. We moved her on a wheelchair. I'm not kidding you, 6 months later, she was no longer with the wheelchair, no longer with the cane. She was walking 4 miles, right? Going to yoga. The pain was gone, but she was in such pain. I'm not just talking physical pain when she came in here. It was a deep emotional pain, right? Spiritual pain that she was in. Then as she started to work these principles and to really use it and practice, it's an inner job. And it's not easy. You know who I'm talking about, right? Yeah. And she's doing great. She's still going strong.
Out there doing her thing.
Right? So it happens for all of us. It's why I'm here. It's why I'm here, because my life changed so dramatically as I came into this teaching. And so this is why I share this work, because it pains me to see people in pain. It pains me to see people suffering and know that there's a way out. It's almost like, if I had the cure for cancer, right? If any of us had the cure for cancer, we want to share it with everybody. Right? That's how I feel about this teaching. That it changes lives in a deep, deep level when we work it. Works if you work it. So, we'll want to revisit this. We're going to come back to this in the next, couple of months, especially as we go into January, and just looking at our vision and mission, and how do we hold ourselves to that? Right? How do we know objectively that we are doing what we set out to do? That's something that I'm putting out to all of you. I don't have that expertise, but maybe someone in the room does, right? Right? That's part of being a team, a spiritual community. So, we said that leaders have this ability, this thing to look forward, right? Just to look ahead and to look ahead with a positive view. But how do we do that? How do we develop that capacity to be forward thinking? It's much simpler than you think. Just think about it. They actually say in the book, it seems so metaphysical, spend some time in the future. What do they mean by that? Like every day. Take 15 minutes. Some people take even longer. For some it's an hour. But to sit down and really envision, what is the future that I want to walk into? What is the future that I see for myself, for my family, for my business, for this center?
It's key to use your imagination.
Yes.
Righteous imagination.
Absolutely. Righteous imagination. Because we're using our imagination all the time. Right? But very often we're using our imagination to think about the things that we're afraid of.
And when we do that, our imagination is using us.
Yes, thank you, Tad. Tad said that when we do that, our imagination is using us. We're not using it, it is using us. Yes.
With the Einstein statement?
Einstein statement?
Imagination is a preview of coming attraction.
Yes. Imagination is your preview of coming attractions. That was Einstein. Yeah. Isn't that beautiful? But we have this amazing capacity as these spiritual beings having a human experience, to use our imagination. And how often do we use it for that? Right? For worry, right? For things that are going to bring us down, going down that spiral, right? We do that. We use our imagination in that way. So what this is continually training ourselves to come back to the truth, right? To keeping that positive. And you know what? It may be crap, what we're going through right now, right? But there's another side. We're going to get through this.
That's right, yeah.
Right? And that is the job of each one of us as leaders, in whatever sphere of influence we have, to remind ourselves and the others that this isn't it. Okay, it's a journey. It's a journey, and we will get through this. We will.
With music.
With music.
We'll dance our way through
We
it.
say, this too shall pass.
That's right.
This too shall pass, right?
And say that and know that we're feeling.
And say it and know, all right, let's say it and know with feeling. This too shall pass.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you take the long view of life, of human civilization, whatever, there were times when people would fill arenas to watch two men fight to the death, and that was considered entertainment.
Yes.
There were times in our country's history that lynchings were done, and it was the same, right? It was considered entertainment. Let's get 10,000 people together and watch while we hang someone. That wasn't that long ago.
Right here.
That wasn't that right here, right? We have phrases that we use, like, picnic, that's one of them, yes. What is the other one? Rule of thumb. Anybody know rule of thumb?
Yeah.
You could beat your wife with a stick, as long as it wasn't any wider than your thumb. Right? That's the truth. Yeah. You know that there. What's that?
That one is still on the books.
It's probably still on the books in some states. It could be. I wouldn't be surprised. You know that the laws that we have now that protect children, child protection laws, came out of animal protection laws. And that didn't happen even till the 60s. Yeah, because, animals used to, people would use them for agriculture. They made money for you, basically. So people protected their animals. It was more important to protect your animals than it was your kids or your wife. Crazy. We think this stuff is nuts, right? Kelly.
First child abuse case in this country.
Yes.
In the 1880s. It's tried under cruelty to animals laws.
That's the truth, yes. Did you all hear? I'll say it again for the people watching online, that the first case, the first child abuse case, was tried using the laws to protect animals. It was Mary Ellen back in the 1880s. Yeah, neighbors, people saw that this child was being abused, and there were no laws, there was no protection for this poor child. Right? So we look at things and it feels like things are bad. It feels like things, and I started out by saying that, right? All these, antidepressants and all of this stuff, this epidemic of hopelessness. But it's a time, it's a circumstance, and this too shall pass. You have a question?
Focusing on that, what they said about Einstein, he also said, I want to know the thoughts of God, the rest are just details. We let the details stop us from doing, we can't see the forest through the trees, we can't see the long term, but the details block us and keep us.
We do, yes. Thank you for saying that, Karen, that sometimes the details of life get in the way, right? We forget why we're here. We think we're just here to make a living. Right? Don't we get caught up in that?
Yeah.
Everybody, right? We're looking at the bank account or, the relationship or whatever. We get caught up in the details and forget the reason that we're here. So to go back to this, we want to spend some time in the future. Not a whole lot, because sometimes that's worrisome, or, we want to be present. We speak about that a lot, right? Being present, being here and now. We know that here and now is wonderful. I have everything I need right here, right now. So when you start looking forward and maybe it gets a little scary, bring yourself back here. Remember, here and now, I have everything I need, and I'm grateful. So grateful for that. And that sets the stage for the next. But take some time to envision your future, and what is it that you would like to see? Where is it that you want to head? And be intentional about that. instead of letting yourself get caught up in the details and the swirl of negativity that's happening around you. Ernest Holmes said this. Now, Ernest Holmes is the founder of this movement, this new thought, science of mind, aka religious science. I'm saying this for all of our new people. And we're also Centers for Spiritual Living. So we have a little bit of a marketing thing here, a little bit of a marketing opportunity.
Slowly from one way of saying it to another way of saying it.
Yes.
We did, to be all-encompassing.
Yes. Donna said it has been an evolution, and it has, because it meant one thing back in the day in the 30s when it was said and written, and now when you say science of mind, people are like, what? What is that? Are you Scientology? Are you Christian Science? And, so it's none of that. It's none of that stuff. It really is not. We're as far from that, I think, as you can be. In any case, Ernest Holmes was the founder of this movement, and he said this: when we use our creative imagination in strong faith, it will create for us, out of the one substance, whatever we form in thought. In this way, man becomes a co-creator with God. Right? We have this creative capacity. This is how we are in the image and likeness of our Creator, is that we have the capacity to create our experience. We may not create we don't create all of the circumstance, but we are the only ones responsible for our experience of that circumstance. Right? And if I'm in the middle of a mess, am I saying, oh, woe is me, this is how it's always going to be? Or do I say, okay, what is this here for? What's it going to teach me? And what's next? Right? What do I need to do? How do I move forward from here? Right? So we are co-creators. It's really an incredible idea, isn't it? To think that we are co-creators with the power and presence that created everything, including us. Including us. And we have the capacity to use that creative power.
Accept some responsibility for where the shoes I'm walking in. I have to accept some responsibility for that.
Absolutely. We need to accept responsibility for where we are in the moment.
To move forward.
In order to move forward. Absolutely. Acknowledging what is so.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that we stay in it.
No.
Right? When you're going through hell, keep on going.
Right.
Don't pitch a tent.
Don't buy
Right? Don't buy property, don't pitch a tent, don't hang out there.
Right.
Okay, look to the next sentence. And remember this. We all, as human beings, there is a deep human yearning to make a difference. Right? People want to know that there is a purpose for their existence. No matter how old we are, no matter what side of the tracks we were born on, everybody wants to make a difference. People want to know that their lives mean something. A significant part of the leader's job is uncovering and reflecting back the meaning that others are seeking. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream. I have a dream. He didn't say I have a plan. I have an idea. I have a dream. And he laid out this amazing dream that people then took as theirs. He didn't force it on anyone. Right? He just expressed a vision, a possibility that people had not seen before. Or weren't sure was real, like maybe they thought about it, but when it came out of this man's mouth in such a powerful and amazing way, they got it. They grasped it. They could see it. And that's what I want for all of us to see, that while we may be going through changes, there is a greater possibility beyond us.
Yes.
For each one of us, no matter what storm, no matter what circumstance you may be going through right now, there is another side. And you're going to come out, I'm going to affirm this, I'm going to speak this over you now, that you're going to come out better, stronger, wiser, right, than ever before. Because life is always evolving ever upward.
Yes.
Always. Remember that. Yeah. Speaking to all of us, so who do we have in here? We have light workers. I can call you all kinds of names. Light workers, spiritual warriors, spiritual activists. Jedis in training, possibilitarians, solutionaries. What else do you want to call yourselves? Right? This is who we are. Look around you. Look around you. You have another one?
I have a quote that you might be interested in that I heard several years ago, that God doesn't want us to build a house that no storm can hit. He wants us to build one that no storm can knock down.
All right. Yes. God doesn't want us to build a house that will never be hit by a storm, but one that can withstand any storm there is. Right? Yes. We're survivors. We're beyond that. We're thrivers. Right? We are people we are here to make a positive difference. Yes. And it is my great pleasure and honor to be among you. And so I want to close with this affirmation, and I will say it myself, and I'm going to invite you all to say it after me. As I use my gifts and talents in the service of others, the meaning and purpose of my life becomes clearer. My example of faith in action inspires and elevates the people around me. All right?